Once upon a time, in the heart of a very busy town called Onitsha in Nigeria, lived an extremely wealthy man's wife known as Ifunanya. Ifunanya's husband was a very successful businessman who owned many luxurious estates, fleet of luxury cars, and was one of the movers and shakers of the town of Onitsha. Behind all that grandeur life, however, was a very sad woman, as life with Chief Emenike was like a very horrible trap for Ifunanya. Chief Emenike, Ifunanya's husband, was an extremely busy man. He was out of town on business trips or he was in his village attending various functions and meetings. Chief Emenike's emotional absence always left Ifunanya sad as she incessantly yearned for a serious connection with someone. Chief Emenike got his wife Ifunanya a personal driver to be driving her around town in his absence. The driver's name was Obiora. Obiora was a very handsome young man in his late 20s. He was a very respectful and polite young man who was always eager to serve. Not long after, Ifunanya started taking extra note of Obiora's charm, warmth, and demeanor. Obera's outward character was what Ifunanya deeply yearned for from her very busy husband, but she never gets that from him. So Ifunanya slowly began to secretly develop feelings for her driver Obiora. She would keenly watch Obiora every day from her window upstairs whenever he was washing her cars downstairs and silently wish in her heart that Obiora was all hers. Ifnaya would sometimes forget herself while staring at Obiora when he is driving her around town. Sometimes she would intentionally sit carelessly in her car to see if she would draw Obiora's attention to herself. But Obiora was always very professional around her, regardless of whatever she does. One fateful day, while Obiora was driving Ifunanya to the market, Ifunanya forcefully started a very personal conversation with him, asking him about his life. Obiora politely shared stories of his humble beginnings with his madam Ifunanya. He told Ifunanya that he had dreams of owning his own transportation company business someday, but because of finance, he had no option than to start driving other people first, so as to keep body and soul together while he tried to save up some money for his dreams. Obiora also told Ifunanya that the responsibility of raising his own immediate family alongside his younger siblings were all on his shoulders, and that's why he works extremely hard so that he could meet up with the demands of his immediate family and his extended family. Ifunanya found Obiora's honesty, ambition, and resilience very refreshing. This made her love him even more. Over the weeks, Ifunanya intentionally started making her conversations with her driver Obiora become a little more frequent, just to get him to loosen up some formalities around her a little bit. Ifunanya even began inviting Obiora to her bedroom and study room sometimes under the guise of discussing work schedules. Obiora initially found those invites awkward, but Ifunanya's persistence over time broke his defenses. One day, after Chief Emenike had left town on another business trip, Ifunanya decided it was finally time for her to make her move. She invited Obiora to her room under the pretense of discussing tasks as usual. While they talked, she loosened her buttons and held Obiora's hands and said to him, "Swear you don't know I like you, Obiora. I see how you always admire and stare at my beauty whenever you're driving me around." Obiora stared at his madam without blinking. He was so surprised hearing those words from her. With all due respect, madam, I am a married man, Obiora said. Come off that, said Ifunanya. So what if you are married? Am I not a married woman myself? What do you gain from your wife, Obiora, apart from poverty? You should be grateful I like you. It's not everybody I see I like. Please, ma, give me some time to think about this, trembled Obiora. Hurry up with the thinking, Obiora, Ifunanya said, winking at him before he left her room. Obiora vigorously poured water over his head when he got outside. As he sat on the floor, feeling confused and sad over what just transpired between him and his madam. This job was his only source of income, and Chief Emenike pays him way above what other drivers in town were earning. That's why he doesn't joke with his work. If he reports Madam to Chief Emenike may not believe him, and he may eventually still lose the job because Chief Emenike barely stays at home, and Madam Ifunaya may angrily set him up on something else, thought Obiora. That night, Obiora did not sleep at all. All he did was think, think, and cry. The following day, while Obiora drove Ifunanya around town, he tried as much as possible to be extremely professional with their conversations. The air between them was so tense as he made sure he completely avoided eye contact with her. Finally, at the close of work that evening, when they got home, when Ifunanya was about leaving her car, she gently whispered to him, "Don't you want to start your transportation business again, Obiora? Did they swear for you with poverty? Why are you acting like a baby? You have nothing to lose. Think about it too," before she walked away. Those words from Ifunanya made Obiora feel so numb and motionless. The thought of his madam finally helping him with the money to use and start his transportation business that will enable him finally save his family from poverty was so tempting. But Obiora was so scared as he had never cheated on his wife in his 4 years of marriage with her. Not long after, Ifnaya's tempting invites and mouth-watering promises started getting on Obiora, so he succumbed to her request and started a secret affair with his madam Ifunanya. For many months, their affair remained greatly hidden and very beneficial to both of them, as Ifunanya was always showering Obiora with expensive gifts and money. Every evening, Obiora would sneak into Ifunanya's bedroom whenever Chief Emenike was out of town and sleep with her. On the days Chief Emenike will be at home, they will drive to a hotel in a remote town on their way home. It wasn't so long before Chief Emenike started noticing the great changes in his wife Ifunanya's behavior whenever he's at home. Ifunanya used to be all over him whenever he was home, seeking his attention. But these days, she would only greet him and maintain her distance. She always used to ensure that no one handled his meals whenever he was home. But these days, she delegates the task to her housemates. If Nanya never came home late before, but these days, even if he duly informs her that he would be home, she would still return home very late, looking so exhausted, and would just shower and sleep off without having any conversations with them. Ifunaya's glow these days could be likened to that of a teenager. Worse off was the awkward tension he was starting to observe between his wife Ifunanya and the driver he gave her. Obiora was starting to act a little disrespectful around him. So one day, Chief Emenike pretended to have left for his usual trips, but he went to a nearby town to stay in a temporary accommodation. He hired a private investigator to help him monitor his wife Ifuna and his driver's movements. Chief Emenike broke down in painful tears while he stared at the photographic evidence the investigative officer handed over to him some days later. Indeed, his precious wife Ifunanya was sleeping with his driver. The pain was unbearable for Chief Emenike, but he maintained his calm. As Ifunanya and Obiora, who had no idea that Chief Emenike was in town, were walking out of Ifunanya's bedroom after having a good time one evening, they were shocked to see Chief Emenike seated outside Ifunanya's room, drinking alcohol, with the whole house staff standing by and watching. Chief Emenike's anger was like a volcanic, but he tried so hard to avoid being violent. Ifunanya and Obiora were so ashamed as they stared at the whole house staff looking at them. Chief Emenike fired Obiora immediately and ordered him to leave his house that night. He went ahead to strip Ifunanya of all the privileges, comforts, and honor he had ever given to her. Ifunanya broke down in tears, pleading for forgiveness from her husband many times, but Chief Emenike remained unforgiving. He went on to file for a divorce from Ifunanya, leaving her penniless so that she would go out there and face the scorn of the society whichever way it pleases her outside his home, since he wasn't enough for her. This is the end of my story. The moral of this story is that unfaithfulness while in a committed union is very bad. We should learn to be contented with whatever we have, no matter what we are experiencing, as the grass is not always greener on the other side. Secondly, never let anyone lure you to what you know is bad and don't want to do, like what happened to Obiora. The end consequences most times may end up ruining you and everything you hold dear forever. Lastly, men should completely understand that sometimes money is not all a woman wants from you. Always find ways to balance things up in your relationships and marriages. Thank you for watching.